Hey guys, what is up? It is me, Pagey, here once again with another video on Arrow Season 6, and this is going to be our review for Episode 7, otherwise entitled Thanksgiving.
Oliver Queen, you're under arrest.
This might be the most difficult thing we've ever had to face. Do people think that the Green Arrow's in prison and the floodgates will open?
Caden James is going after Sterling Stadium.
Get those fans out of there.
Cry havoc and let slip the dogs of war.
Arrow. All new this Thursday at 9.
So last episode, the big thing to take from that, apart from it being like the big conclusion to the Deathstroke story arc, was the ending when we had Diggle reveal to Wild Dog, Curtis, or Mr. Terrific, and Dinah Drake that he had the issues with his arm, like the tremors and stuff like that, and he was taking drugs to sort of get over that because they had been taken off Ricardo Diaz, or they had been taken from Ricardo Diaz, like he was, you know, ringleading that drug ring, if you want to call it that. And yeah, so Curtis then, you know, tells him about an injection and stuff, but we'll get to that in a second when it, you know, it relates to the video. So the episode title was obviously Thanksgiving, which means, yep, it's set in Thanksgiving, and it's fitting because the episode, or the day this episode aired, it was actually Thanksgiving in America, which might have had an effect on ratings, but they might have tuned in because it was a Thanksgiving episode. I don't know. But going from the trailer and some promo images, we did know that Oliver was actually going to be arrested in this episode, and I was not expecting it to happen straight away. I was a bit surprised by that. But obviously it involves the whole FBI thing, and personally, I have mentioned this in, I think, one other video. I don't think it was my most recent review for Arrow. I think it might have been a couple of episodes ago. I'm not really the biggest fan of this FBI storyline. Like, it definitely is not impressing me that much. I don't really like the agent. I think her name's Samantha Watson. It's Agent Watson, but I think her name's Samantha or Samandra, one of the two. Not the biggest fan of it. If you are, that's fine. Just me, whenever it happens, I'm like, okay, I really don't care. Because I know it's not going to lead anywhere too big. Like, I think it's going to end sooner rather than later on the show. So I'm not the biggest fan of it. It just sort of bores me a bit. But yeah, you might like it. Just for me, it's not at the top when it comes to things I enjoy about Arrow at the moment. But when Oliver is getting interrogated, we do get a Roy Harper name drop, which was pretty cool because Roy has been teased to be coming back sometime this season, most likely towards the end. But Colton Haynes, who does play Roy Harper, or who played Roy Harper, did actually put not only Arrow in his bio for Instagram, like he updated his Instagram bio and actually put Arrow in there. But he also did like tweet on Twitter, that he could be coming back to Arrow soon. Now I think it would fit because I think Arrow's going to need some help, or Team Arrow's going to need some help come later in the season, just due to people being preoccupied and maybe not being able to fight. So it would be fitting if Roy was to come back at some point later in the season and help out the rest of Team Arrow. Now in this episode, we had a couple of returning characters from previous seasons as well as previous episodes. The main two to talk about were Caden James and Black Siren, who we knew were working together. And yeah, I do like the back and forth between the two, especially that opening scene. I thought that was pretty good. And I am enjoying, you know, Katie Cassidy as Black Siren didn't actually have a lot to do this episode. It was more Caden James. But even then, he didn't have a lot, but he just had some like outstanding moments. So I think they are saving them because I think in the mid-season finale, both of them are meant to be coming back, as well as Ricardo Diaz. So that mid-season finale for Arrow should be a bit of a blast, and I'm pretty much looking forward to that as much as any of the other shows. But speaking of a character returning from a previous season, we actually had the lawyer that Oliver had was actually Moira's lawyer from previous seasons. I think the last time we saw her was, I want to say season 2, because I'm pretty sure it was season 2. But yeah, she's back, and I thought that was just a nice moment. Like, Oliver was in court, you know, just a throwback to Moira when she was in court. So yeah, that was a nice moment. As I did mention earlier, we had the injection from last episode, or it got injected this episode, but it got set up last episode, where it's basically similar to the prototype spinal chip that Felicity had from back in season 4, I think that was. God, that was terrible. But anyway, so it's basically like that for Diggle's arm. Unfortunately, it didn't work, and I'm not surprised in retrospect that it didn't work, because when it was happening, I was like, God, Diggle is recovering quickly. Like, this chip is working really quickly. And of course it doesn't work because it's just too good to be true. And yeah, it just puts Diggle in a bit of a sticky situation, and he definitely cannot be the Green Arrow anymore at this point. But when it came to this thing, it did cause like a bit of a fight between Curtis and Felicity. And I do like how Felicity just like swept everything under the rug, because she was more in the wrong in this situation. But if it was the other way around and say Curtis was more in the wrong, Felicity would keep going hard and hard and hard. So I liked how they just let Felicity sweep it under the rug and just forget about it. And you might say, oh, that's picking on Felicity, but not really. It's almost nitpicking, just the writing in general. I don't think it's necessarily picking on Felicity, because it was the one thing in this episode where I rolled my eyes at it, and I was like, come on, like, really? Now, in this episode, we did have a big concert going on, and that concert was for a little-known performer, you know, Billy Joel. You might have heard of him. Now, for those wondering why they just, like, chose Billy Joel, like, it wasn't just, like, a random hat, like, oh, let's pick a name of that hat. Oh, Billy Joel. Mark Guggenheim, who is an executive producer on the show, is, like, a massive Billy Joel fan, so I'm 99.978% sure that's why Billy Joel was the artist in question who was, like, holding the concert that was being targeted by Caden James and his crew. So yeah, for those wondering why Billy Joel was the artist chosen, that's why. Now, in regards to Diggle's like nerve damage, I was very surprised to find out that it had spread to his back. So all this stuff that he was doing with his arm and stuff, and the continued use of it and spreading to his back, has caused not only for it to spread to his back, but for it to become essentially permanent. So it is going to be interesting to see how it progresses in, you know, not the crossover, because I think Diggle's going to be sitting in that out for the most part. We'll talk about that in a second. But just from the mid-season finale and, you know, the early parts of the back half of this season, interested to see how Diggle goes, and like maybe he goes down a dark road. Yeah, I don't see a lot of light coming from Diggle, but then there is a lot of light from Diggle in this episode. But I just can't see it being a very happy, you know, near future for Diggle, but I don't know, I might be surprised. But when Oliver and Diggle actually talk, and we do find out that being Green Arrow is actually Diggle's dream, and he references the crossover from last year with the Dominators, which I do find pretty fitting, seeing that next week is the big Crisis on Earth X crossover. So I thought it was pretty fitting that this week, the week before the crossover, we referenced last year's crossover, just as like a final thought about last year's one. But he does reference it, like the Dominators, like dreamland, or like the dream reality that we had, and that was every single character's dream life. Like that would have been their perfect life. So for Diggle, it was being Green Arrow. For Oliver, and this is a pretty interesting one, it was being with Laurel. And I was actually wondering when that happened, like how many Olicitors or Olicity fans would be triggered by that, and the fact that Diggle said it, because Diggle's meant to be this like savior and like this preacher for Felicity, and he's saying that everyone in there was experiencing their dream lives. Oliver was with Laurel. I think Ray was with Felicity. Like, I don't know what Sarah was doing. Thea had her parents and all of her family together, so everyone was living their dream lives. Diggle, Green Arrow. But yeah, I was surprised that they did that, because I wonder if Diggle's going to be crucified by the Felicity fandom, like crucifying Diggle, the Diggle sacrifice ceremony. I wonder if that's going to be happening in the next couple of days. Now, it shouldn't come as too much of a surprise that Oliver came back as Green Arrow in this episode for a bit. Now, honestly, I knew he was coming back, but I thought it would actually be at the beginning of the episode. Because Diggle's issues, I thought Oliver might have stepped in for like an opening fight scene, or the opening like 5 to 10 minutes, and then that led to him getting arrested because he got caught on camera again or something like that. Or maybe Green Arrow was out doing something and the mayor couldn't make an appearance or something, and it just seemed suspect and they went and arrested him. I thought that was what it was going to be, but it was actually the complete opposite. He was Green Arrow at the end of the episode. But this led to a pretty cool encounter between Green Arrow and Caden James, where we find out that Caden James has a son called Owen, and due to him getting locked up by Argus, it led to Owen going his own way and Caden not knowing where he is, essentially, so him losing his son. And like this whole bomb thing in the Billy Joel concert was a massive hoax just for Caden James and for Green Arrow to meet, essentially. It was something else, which we'll talk about in a second, but for the most part, that's what it was. And you could argue that's going to the extreme, but I don't really care, because the confrontation between them two was pretty good. You do actually see a T-sphere, or we might call them a J-sphere for Caden James sphere. I don't know, something like that. But we do know back in episode 1 that Black Siren stole one of the prototype T-spheres, so Caden James has obviously been able to tinker with it and use it for his own use. And I'm assuming he's made a lot of them, because I'm pretty sure that T-sphere blew up when he threw it at Oliver. So there must be more of them back at the Caden James headquarters. But yeah, that altercation was pretty cool. And also Black Siren sort of wrecked Oliver in that situation. Oliver's probably going to be feeling that for a couple of days. But also what happened from this bomb hoax was the viral footage of the Vigilantes, or Team Arrow, beating up the cops. But these cops were obviously not real cops. They weren't cops, but anyone watching that viral footage wouldn't know that, because it's not like a big arrow saying a fake cop or anything like that. So This has been sent out. Not good for the anti-vigilante or whatever it was called, the Vigilante Law thing that was going on in Star City. Yeah, not a good look. But I guess the bright spot for this episode was when Thea woke up, and I did like how she's now Auntie Thea because William's there. So Thea is an auntie because she's Oliver's sister. You know, Oliver's got a son, Auntie Thea. So it's just weird thinking about that because we've seen Thea grow up throughout the show, like as a teenager in season 1 to now being an auntie in season 6. It's just sort of strange and just makes you look back on the show and just think, wow, like the show's grown with all these characters and stuff like that. So yeah, I thought that was a nice moment. I wasn't too surprised that she woke up because as soon as I saw her in the hospital bed, I was like, well, they wouldn't have just flown Willa Holland up to Vancouver to film just her in a hospital bed. She must be waking up at the end of this episode. And that's what happened. So it wasn't surprising, but it was still a nice moment. But then they do tease the whole Diggle possibly getting back in the Green Arrow suit after he recovers and, you know, get some mojo back, if you want to call it that. Now, I'm not surprised this is the case, but they really do need to tread carefully when it comes to this because a lot of people aren't the biggest fan of Green Arrow or Diggle as Green Arrow. So if they do go with this, I don't mind him getting back in the suit because I do think it relates back to the Ricardo Diaz story, which I would like to see because it's very much like the comic book storyline from the New 52 where Diggle was Green Arrow and did something bad to Ricardo. But they just need to tread carefully because people aren't the biggest fans of it, like the majority of people watching, I think. So I think they just need to split it, maybe like a third of the time Diggle is Green Arrow and then Oliver is Green Arrow the rest of the time because people watch Arrow to see Oliver Queen as the Green Arrow. They don't watch to see Diggle as Green Arrow. Like even if something interesting is happening with Oliver as Mayor, it's still not as interesting as him smashing some dudes as Green Arrow. So yeah, they need to tread carefully with that, but hopefully they do. Just because it's not hard to just tell from reading social media that Diggle as Green Arrow isn't the most popular thing. But overall, I thought this was a pretty decent episode. I thought it was a decent episode leading into the crossover and then the mid-season finale after that. As I said, not the biggest fan of the FBI stuff. Sorry for clapping, that was very loud. But yeah, not the biggest fan of the FBI stuff, but hopefully that slowly seeps out of the show and they finish that off because, as I said, not that interesting. It'd be really boring if the whole season Oliver was just under the FBI's eye, I guess, like Big Brother's eye. It just wouldn't be interesting. It'd lose its appeal very quickly. So I don't think they're going to be around for that much longer. There might be a way to just get them out of the show quick and fast. But yeah, not the biggest fan of that. But everything else, I thought it was good seeing that a lot of people interacting was fun because we haven't seen that for a couple of episodes because Oliver's been away with Deathstroke. But yeah, it was pretty enjoyable and I enjoyed it for the most part. But thanks for watching, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, it would be awesome if you could drop a like on the video to show your support for not only this video, but the channel as a whole. Let me know in the comment section down below what would you like about this episode, what didn't you like too much, what were you a bit iffy about, and just leave all your general opinions in the comment section down below. And of course, if you are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe. I'll catch you later, guys, and goodbye.